Right. Well, but look, he was the patron saint of God help me out here. I always thought, I read the story and I was told it was a mild scolding for not having enough faith, right? But again, you look at the story, maybe it wasn't.
Welcome to the Chrysalis Project, where honest curiosity meets faith and spirituality. No question is too big, too messy, too uncomfortable to ask. Because if I had to sum up this podcast in a single sentence, it would be this. Let's be honest, none of us have it figured out. But let's try anyway. So I'm pulling up a chair for anyone who's willing. Christians, non-believers, and everyone in between. We're not here for easy answers. We're here to wrestle, to laugh, to wonder what faith might look like when we stop squeezing it into a box. I'm John DeHoyas, your host. Peace, love, and tortillas. Have you ever felt like your faith was running on fumes? Like you're holding on to belief with one hand and doubt with the other? The idea is faith is supposed to be this unshakable mountain of truth, except it often doesn't, and instead feels more like dangling from a rickety rope bridge over a canyon of despair. And in those moments, some very well-meaning Christians always seem to pop their heads out and say, well, you just need to believe harder. Okay, thanks. Very helpful. I'll just believe harder while also trying to not fall off this bridge. But here's the good news. You're actually in very good company. Because in Mark chapter 9, we meet a father who is the patron saint of I'm trying, but God, I need help here. Let's set the scene. This man's son is in absolute crisis. He's convulsing. He's foaming at the mouth. He's seizing uncontrollably. Now, the father tells us this has been happening since the boy's childhood. Years of pain, years of fear, years of helplessness. You can almost see it, this father kneeling by his son time and time again, holding him through the seizures, praying for relief that never came. Now, culturally, the text says the boy is afflicted by a demon, but let's step into the father's world for a moment. They didn't have the vocabulary or understanding that we have today, so more than likely this was epilepsy. Because when you don't understand what you're facing, when you can't name the monster, you call it what you know. For them, this affliction was a spirit. So the father does what any of us would do. He seeks help. He brings his son to Jesus' disciples, and they fail. They couldn't heal the boy. Now, can you imagine how much heavier that failure made this father's burden? So now the father escalates the issue. He brings his son to Jesus, and you can hear the weariness in his voice. If you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. Now, Jesus responds with this line, if you can, everything is possible for one who believes. Now, this is where traditional interpretations kick in. People usually say, well, Jesus is mildly rebuking the man for not having enough faith. But let's slow down for a second and think about it. Think about what's going on here. This father is at the end of his rope. His hope has been beaten down, disappointment after disappointment. Jesus knows the disciples tried and failed. Jesus knows how much this failure has cost the man. And the tone of Jesus' statement changes dramatically if you can imagine something that the text alone cannot fully express. What if, and this is speculation, but what if Jesus' reply wasn't directed solely at the Father, or maybe even not directed at the Father at all? What if he turned to his disciples while making the statement with one of those very pointed dad glares? You know, the one that says, really, guys, you couldn't handle this one? Now, Jesus, just before this, addressed the crowd when he realized what the situation was. And that crowd included his disciples, and he expressed that frustration by saying, you faithless generation, how much longer must I put up with you? This isn't just a casual remark, it's a direct challenge to those who were supposed to step up, to carry the weight of faith and serve others, yet fell short in that moment. And later, when the disciples privately asked why they couldn't heal the boy, Jesus said, "This kind only comes out by prayer." It's almost as if he's saying it wasn't the Father's lack of faith, it was your lack of understanding of the situation. And in that scene, the Father gives us one of the most relatable, raw, and beautiful confessions in all of Scripture. I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Let's translate that. My faith is at 5%. I'm exhausted. I'm trying, but this is all I've got. And what did Jesus do? Does he shame the man for not believing enough? Does he roll his eyes and say, well, that's not good enough now, is it? No, Jesus simply healed the boy. Because the point isn't perfect faith, it's honest faith. Now here's the other layer of the story. The real battle wasn't just external, it was also internal. The Father's greatest struggle wasn't the disciples or even the boy's condition, it was the fight within himself. The whisper of lies that you're not good enough, the voice of shame, you should have more faith. The despair that says maybe this is all your fault. And we know that voice because we've all heard it. But faith doesn't mean you never struggle. Faith means showing up with what you've got, whether it's a mountain of certainty or a mustard seed of hope, and saying, God, this is all I have. Help me. Jesus meets the Father right where he is. He doesn't require the Father to believe harder. He doesn't place the burden of healing on the man. Instead, he carries the weight that no one else could carry. And this is important, especially for those of us in positions of leadership and spiritual influence. If someone comes to us struggling with faith or life for that matter, the last thing we should do is make them feel like their struggle is an indicator of failure. Jesus simply healed the boy. He restored what was broken. So where does that leave us? Faith isn't about having all the answers or erasing every doubt. Faith is about being honest. It's about showing up, struggle and all, and offering it to God, saying, I believe, but help me with my unbelief. The real spiritual battle isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about resisting the lies that say you're not good enough, you're too far gone, or even worse, this is all on you. So let me ask you this. Where are you struggling right now? Is it with shame, with pride, or is it because the weight that you're carrying, you were never meant to carry alone? Whatever it is, don't hide it, don't deny it, name it, because Jesus isn't waiting for the perfect version of you. He's waiting for the real you.